There is something happening inside your body right now that most doctors never bring up during a routine visit. It has no dramatic symptoms, no sudden pain, no clear warning sign. But if you're over 40 and you have noticed that getting up from a chair feels slightly harder than it used to, that your legs feel heavier after a short walk, that your grip is not quite what it was, or that your body simply does not feel as solid as it did 10 years ago, what I am about to share with you may be the most important thing you hear this year. My name is Dr. Samuel Prescott, and for the past 2 decades, I have studied how the human body ages at the muscular and cellular level. And what I have found, what the research consistently points to, is that most people are losing something critical silently every single day, and they have no idea it is happening. I want to ask you something. When was the last time you felt genuinely strong? Not just functional, not just getting through the day. Actually strong, the way your body used to feel without you even thinking about it. If you have to go back years to find that answer, keep watching. Because what I am going to explain to you today is not about motivation or effort. It is about biology. And once you understand what is actually happening beneath the surface, everything changes. Let me start with a number. After the age of 35, the average person loses between 3 and 8% of their muscle mass per decade. That might not sound alarming. But here is what that number does not tell you. The loss is not linear. It does not happen at a steady, predictable pace. It accelerates, and after 60, the rate can double. What that means in practical terms is that the body you have today, if nothing changes, will be significantly weaker 5 years from now than it is in this moment. Not because you stopped trying, not because you became lazy, but because of the biological process that most people are completely unaware of, a process called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is not a disease. It is not a diagnosis your doctor will hand you after a blood test. It is a gradual, progressive loss of skeletal muscle mass and function that begins in midlife and compounds over time. The word comes from Greek, sarx, meaning flesh, and penia, meaning loss. Loss of flesh, loss of the tissue that holds you upright, keeps you stable, powers every movement you make. And the reason it is so dangerous is precisely because it is invisible. You do not wake up one morning and feel it hit you. You simply notice, slowly, that things are harder. The stairs, the groceries, getting off the floor, standing up after sitting for too long. These are not signs of getting old in the vague, poetic sense. These are measurable biological signals. Your body is telling you something. The question is whether you are listening. Now here is what most people get wrong about this. They assume muscle loss is simply about not exercising enough. And while physical activity is critically important, it does not explain the full picture, because something else is happening at the cellular level that changes the entire equation. Scientists call it anabolic resistance. And it is the real reason why the rules that work for your body at 30 simply do not apply anymore. When you were younger, your muscles responded efficiently to stimulation. You moved, you ate protein, and your body converted those signals into muscle repair and growth almost automatically. The system was sensitive, responsive, but with age, that sensitivity begins to fade. Your muscles start requiring more input to produce the same output. The signal gets weaker, the response gets slower, and the gap between what your body is receiving and what it actually needs to maintain muscle tissue begins to widen. This is not about willpower. This is about physiology. And then there is another layer to this that almost nobody talks about. Chronic low-grade inflammation. Not the kind of inflammation you feel when you sprain an ankle. Not visible, not painful in any obvious way, but a quiet, persistent internal environment that interferes with the very mechanisms your body uses to build and repair muscle. Research has consistently shown that this type of systemic inflammation accelerates muscle degradation. It disrupts protein synthesis. It impairs the signals that tell your muscles to rebuild after use. And in many adults over 40, this inflammation is running silently in the background, compounding the effects of anabolic resistance and accelerating the entire process of muscular decline. Think about what that means for a moment. You are dealing with muscles that respond less efficiently to stimulation, protein synthesis that is less effective, and an inflammatory environment that is actively working against tissue repair. All of this happening simultaneously. all of it invisible, all of it progressing quietly while life continues as normal. This is why sarcopenia catches people off guard. By the time the functional decline becomes undeniable, by the time standing up requires effort or walking a few blocks leaves you more tired than it should, the process has already been underway for years. And I want to be honest with you about something. The moment when you first notice those signs, the difficulty rising from a low chair, the legs that feel stiff and slow in the morning, the hands that have lost their grip, that moment is not the beginning. That moment is already somewhere in the middle. The beginning was years earlier, quiet and undetected, while the system was already losing ground. This is why I always tell people that awareness is the most powerful tool you have. Not alarm, not panic, awareness. Because once you understand what is happening, you can make choices that actually address the root of it. Now I want to be very clear about something before I continue. There is no single pill, no powder, no shortcut that will reverse decades of biological change overnight. Anyone who tells you otherwise is not being honest with you. But here is what the research does show. There are specific nutritional elements, building blocks that the body uses to maintain, repair, and support muscle tissue that most adults over 40 are not getting in sufficient quantity or in the right form for their aging physiology. And when those gaps are addressed, the body's ability to support its own muscular function can improve in measurable ways. Not magic, biology. The human body needs amino acids to build and maintain protein. And not all amino acids are created equal. There are 8 that are considered essential, meaning the body cannot produce them on its own. They must come from what you consume. And these 8 amino acids are not simply building blocks in the abstract sense. They are the direct raw material your muscles use for repair and maintenance. When the body has what it needs, the process works more efficiently. When it does not, the deficit compounds over time. Quietly, the way everything in this conversation compounds over time. Here is what I find striking when I look at the data from adults in midlife and beyond. The majority are not consuming enough of these essential amino acids in forms that are effectively absorbed given their current physiology. And remember, as we discussed, anabolic resistance means the body is already less efficient at using what it receives. So the gap between what the body needs and what it is actually able to utilize becomes even wider. This is not a minor nutritional footnote. It is a foundational issue for anyone who wants to maintain strength, stability, and functional independence as they age. Now I want you to think about something honestly. If you have found yourself lately feeling more fatigued than you think you should, if stairs feel like more of an effort, if you sit down and notice that standing back up requires a pause, a preparation, a kind of gathering of energy that you did not use to need, if your legs feel less reliable on uneven ground, if you have caught yourself holding a railing that you used to pass without thinking, these are not isolated inconveniences. These are signals from a system under strain. And what is concerning is not the inconvenience itself. What is concerning is the trajectory. Because if those signals are present now and nothing changes in how the body is being supported, the direction of travel is toward greater loss, not stabilization. The body does not plateau on its own in this process. It continues. And the gap between where you are today and full functional independence narrows a little more with each passing month. There is a method that a growing number of people have quietly begun using to support their muscular health, not as a replacement for movement or nutrition, but as a deliberate, targeted way to give the body the specific building blocks it needs at a stage of life when getting those elements from diet alone becomes increasingly difficult. It is not a pharmaceutical. It is not a stimulant. It is a nutritional approach grounded in the science of essential amino acids and how they interact with the body's protein synthesis process. The people I have seen use it consistently describe a gradual but real shift. Not dramatic, not overnight, but a sense that the body is responding again, that things feel slightly more stable, that effort produces something, that the system is being supported rather than depleted. If you want to learn more about this approach, the link is in the description and pinned in the first comment below. Here is what I want to leave you with, because this is important and I do not want you to miss it. The research on muscle loss is unambiguous on one point above all others. The earlier you address it, the more options you have. This is not a situation where waiting to see how things develop is a neutral choice. Every month that passes without addressing the nutritional and biological environment your muscles are operating in is a month of continued, compounding loss. The body you have right now is more responsive than the body you will have in 2 years if this continues unchecked. That is not meant to frighten you. That is simply the physiology stated honestly, because you deserve accurate information. The people who act on this tend to share one thing in common. They did not wait until functional decline was severe. They recognized the early signals, the subtle ones, the ones that are easy to rationalize as just a bad week or just getting older, and they chose to take those signals seriously while the body still had the capacity to respond meaningfully. That window does not close all at once, but it does narrow. And the question worth sitting with is a simple one, not whether this process is real. The science is clear on that. The question is whether you're going to address it while your body still has the biological capacity to respond. This combination of 8 essential amino acids gives your body the building blocks to make what it needs to feel stronger, more stable, and more capable at any age. Not a promise of perfection, a return to function, a support for the body you are still living in. The link is below, in the description and in the first comment. Take a look while this is still in front of you, because the best time to support what you have is before you realize how much you have already lost.